Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, couple of unbeatens gathering at United Supermarkets Arena on Saturday. Which way to skin a cat will the Red Raiders choose? We'll get into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Score with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers are getting $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, man. Wrapping up a week and heading in to an exciting Saturday in West Texas as Grant McCasland and the Red Raider men's basketball team are back on the floor, yet to lose through 2 contests in the Big 12. And that's the same thing we'll say about their opponent. A couple of different things going down at the USA that we'll also touch on today. Why was Joey McGuire bringing a group of guys to the gym yesterday to get ready for Saturday's affair? We'll touch on that and also get to what is on tap in the Big 12 Conference this weekend. I don't know that I had game number 3 circled for any particular reason, Chris, with the Wildcats of Kansas State, but Texas Tech has done their part to make this interesting, and so has K-State. These are 2 of only 3 teams in the league that are yet to lose so far through this early portion of the league schedule. And leaving a season ago, Kansas State probably talked about as much as anyone as far as some of that postseason momentum was concerned with their head coach and things that they were able to do. But looking forward to this one, man. Something's got to give. Somebody's going home with an L. We just hope it's the people in purple.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with this particular game, but you mentioned that about, 14 teams in this bad boy of a league, and only 3 of them are left standing without a loss. 2 games in.
2 games.
Are you kidding me? It speaks to how important home games are. It speaks to just really any win is to be celebrated. I don't care who it's against. And that's already been established. I would have told you coming into this deal that, the Central Floridas and Cincinnati's are maybe at the lower end. Yeah. Well, they really showed old Chris Level what an idiot he is, because, that Central Florida scene was wild after they beat what many think is a national championship contender in Kansas. Okay, so this game against Kansas State on Saturday, Cowan, is, first of all, I think Vegas thinks it's about a pick 'em. It's like a 1 point, if Texas Tech is favored, it's like a 1 point, spread. That should tell you all you need to know. This is going to be a dogfight. This is going to be one that goes down to the end. It's a bit, it's you better play well, and if you don't, you will lose. And, Kansas State's saying the same thing. The storylines here are pretty fascinating because I think Grant would tell you that Jerome Tang is one of his best friends in coaching, like outside of somebody that he's working with now. They spent 5 years together in Waco. They have a lot of respect for each other, and I think they've exchanged ideas and had conversations, and I think they remain pretty tight. So that there's that part. There's also the part to where, one of Kansas State's best player was Grant's best player last year in Tyler Perry, which is pretty fascinating. There won't be many secrets, I guess, with this deal in this game. I think schematically, it's just going to come down to who plays better. But Tyler Perry's averaging, about 15 points a game. He's the smallish, guard that plays for Kansas State. That was one of the Grant's best players the last couple of years. I think if we remember back to the summer when he gets in the portal, there was some immediate connections to like, well, he's getting the portal. I mean, surely he's going to, and I don't know if, Pop is not, the biggest guard. You didn't have Joe Toussaint yet. I think you're still sorting out your roster. And I think that Grant maybe was a little still trying to figure things out. And, you could just only have, too many, smaller guards, I guess. You've got in this league. But you've got two guys right now that are just crushing it, and Joe Toussaint and Pop Isaacs. But the Tyler Perry thing is pretty fascinating to me. But, Matt Breyer, Coach AC, obviously Grant, everybody that was at North Texas last year, they'll know everything there is to know about Tyler Perry. And Tyler Perry will probably have a really good feel for exactly how Grant will try to play this thing. So there's a lot going on. And, oh, by the way, we'll talk about football at some level later on, but Joey McGuire would tell you one of his best friends in coaching outside of football is Jerome Tang from their time in Waco together. And I think that Joey would tell you that in some ways Jerome Tang is kind of the basketball version of him, and from the energy and just the positivity, and they kind of portray themselves really the same. So anyway, a lot going on here, but going to be a tough one, man.
Yeah, I think listening to some of what Coach McCaslin had to say on his weekly show last night, called Jerome Tang his brother, and poor Coach Tang. I mean, Elite Eight, got as high, I think, as number 5 in the nation in his first season last year. Kind of like Sonny Dykes, man. Save something for year number 2. What are you doing? This is going to be a long road. I don't know what we anticipated out of Coach Tang in K-State, but, man, they were, as I already said, as much discussed and with as much momentum maybe as any team in the country at a certain point as you got later into the postseason, just really kind of blowing the doors off. And the follow-up act hadn't been too bad so far, 12-3, 2-0 in the league. But that was quite a run they put together. And they've got, as you mentioned, Perry and a Creighton transfer as well. They've got some new faces, obviously, playing integral parts this season. But that was a heck of a debut for him last year in Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, he lost Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson, which were two of the best players in the league last year, period. Two of the best players in the country, honestly. And, yeah, it was just kind of one of these things where everything kind of worked for them. And I think they had some high expectations this year. But you mentioned Tyler Perry. We've talked about him. Arthur Kaluma is who you're talking about, the Creighton transfer. This is a Texas Tech team that saw Arthur Kaluma in Maui a year ago. So when you suffered a loss to Creighton, it was Arthur Kaluma that got a hold of you big time on that day, and it was just too much to defend. I mean, you saw Creighton play one of their best games of the year against you last year. So, and he's somebody that I think you had serious interest in the portal. When Grant had taken over, I think there was some, mutual interest and all that, but he decided to stay, in the Midwest. And then there's a Mississippi State transfer named Cam Carter that's also lighted it up for the Wildcats. They have had some turmoil. Maybe a lot of people weren't really paying attention. I think some people, if you were paying attention to the sport of the league, you were. There was a situation with a young man by the name of Naquan Tomlin that was on that Elite Eight team last year. He had an incident at a bar, I guess in September, October. I can't remember exactly when it was. It was determined that I don't think charges were filed. I mean, but it got, there was some, he's suspended from the team kind of thing, and everybody just kind of thought he'd be suspended for a bit, and then he'd kind of come back. And the bizarro world of college athletics, when everybody's kind of cryptic but also tries to be very transparent. I mean, it sure sounds like, with all that came out about it, that the basketball program / athletic department and the university were on very different sides of how this should have been handled. And Jerome Tang, I think very internally, according to reports, very frustrated with the school president. who basically made the decision that, Naquan Tomlin not allowed back on this campus anymore or done with the basketball program and all that. And I think that frustrated Jerome Tang and others mightily based on what you read out there. And Jerome Tang went out of his way to congratulate Naquan Tomlin on graduate. I mean, all these things. But anyways, so I think it was a bit, in turmoil as they worked through that in mid-December. So they dropped a few games and things like that. They also have a young man by the name of Quez Glover that transferred in that they thought would be a heavy rotation type guard for them. And he was coming back from a knee injury. And I think a day or two before he was about to debut, he re-injured it and is now lost for the year. So there's two parts of their team they thought they'd have that they don't. The computers don't like them as much as they do Texas Tech from a resume standpoint, but make no mistake, this is a pick'em game. I think it's a toss-up. You better show up and not turn it over, and you better shoot it well and do these things that you've been doing. And if so, I think you're going to be just fine. However, if you kind of, Kansas State's good enough to beat you and beat you handily if you show up and don't play well.
Yeah, a lot there about the Wildcats. As for the Red Raiders and their approach to trying to win this game. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And football is close to wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with America's #1 sports book and the official sports book of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. So many ways to spice up the action with FanDuel's safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. Are you really even parlaying if you're not visiting FanDuel's Parlay Hub? I doubt it. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon today. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place only a $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NFL. As for the Red Raiders and their approach to trying to win this game, and we mentioned the name Cam Carter, leading scorer, but I was interested to hear Coach McCaslin more so point out his ability to disrupt. 31 steals on the season, a little less than 3 per game. And, that's really something I'm going to be curious about because Texas Tech has done such a good job, including the high watermark of the year last time out with only 4 turnovers. But curious to see if K-State can take them out of that via Carter or anybody else that may be able to do so. But I know it would seem more like, hey, continue to do what you've been doing because you've been playing some of your best basketball of the year so far. But I'm curious to see maybe what the Red Raiders have in store for the Wildcats here as you approach a different kind of challenge. Pretty good defensive team, less than 70 per game. They're giving up, I think, around 67, 68 points per game. But I don't know if you get back to what we talked about once upon a time, and hopefully this is not rearing its ugly head, but there was some cleaner basketball played away from United Supermarkets Arena. Again, the most recent game is an extreme exception. But at one point in time, Chris, we were talking about, the turnover number is a little higher when you're back in the LBK. So hopefully that's not something that's rearing its head once again on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think, Kansas State's got a young man by the name of David Gasson that is one of their bigs. I think that he's kind of like, I don't know, maybe their Devin Cambridge type guy that he can switch off on anybody defensively. But he's been averaging, I think, double-digit rebounds in the last 4 or 5 games. And, I would point to, one of the things that, the low turnover aspect. But, I mean, Grant is trying to tell everybody without putting in bold text, but they know they have to be a better rebounding team. That they know that they can't, that's also one of the things that they're just not or haven't been great at. But they've got to be better there. And, you lived to tell about it in Austin last weekend that, Texas, hammered you on the glass. They had a bunch of offensive rebounds, but again, it's just this crazy set of circumstances and you won it. You figured out a way to do it, but, you can't keep doing that. So, it was fun for me to bring it up and for us to talk about it. But, Pop Isaac's out rebounding Warren Washington. Things like that. I just wonder, can you, and again, if that means that Warren is keeping a guy like David Gasson off the glass all the time and letting one of his guards go get it. I mean, I get it. But I don't necessarily think that that's exactly how it was drawn up, but I just would look at, your rebounding numbers, on Saturday, and offensive rebounds, second chance points, all those kinds of things, because Kansas State is typically very active like they were last year.
Man, and excited to see Kerwin Walton back in the mix from a scoring standpoint once again. And I'm wondering if you're going to be kind of trading off days with Walton or McMillan, maybe having a bigger impact, or if I could dream of a day where they're both bombing from either side. Maybe we'll get that on Saturday.
Yeah, and these are as long as somebody's doing it, I think as long as somebody's offering you some scoring outside of Pop and Joe, you don't really care who it is. But, and then Warren's obviously been a part of that. We mentioned about, Robert Jennings and Lamar Washington last weekend in Austin with the 9 combined points. But yeah, Kerwin obviously did that and then some on Tuesday night versus Oklahoma State. And so,
and some different ways too, Chris. He had one of the toughest finishes of the day, left-handed, I think, off the glass, taking the foul. I mean, it wasn't just, hey, I'm open from beyond the arc, I'll pull the trigger. He had a nice couple finishes too. We mentioned the dish from Washington as he's cutting to the basket on the baseline. So a couple of different ways he was making it happen.
It's not like he was just typecast last year as that, hey, dude, this is all you can do. Just do this. Don't do anything else. I mean, nobody told him that. I mean, I remember, do you remember the one game last year? And again, things were bad with the basketball program at the time, but you were going to Baton Rouge, and it was kind of like a nice break, getting out of conference play, and you go win a game in Baton Rouge in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. And I think Kerwin Walton had like somewhere between 17, 21 points. He bombed in 4, 5, 6 threes, I think. I mean, it was one of those days. And it was mostly all due to the three-pointer and maybe a free throw or two. I'd have to go back and look to be sure. But it's been fascinating this year. It's like all of a sudden he's kind of added a lot more complete to his game. I mean, he'll put it on the floor. He'll try to get to the rim. He's clearly straining and being much more active on defense than I think he's done in the past, which is what Grant would tell you. This is why he's playing more. This is why we now start him. It's because he's elevated his game on defense. And all the minutes that he's played, speaking of low turnover games, this is wild to me. If you look at the season stats, because he's played a lot of minutes all of a sudden lately, like we're talking, 15 to 20 in the last, 7, 8, 9 games in a row here. And was playing some before, Cambridge got hurt and all that. He's turned the ball over twice. 2 times all season. I mean, so he's a big ingredient into team-wise why you're because he's not trying to do anything outside of himself and not trying to force it, not trying to, again, make the simple play. If they're going to take away the 3, I'm putting it on the floor. I'm trying to get to the rim. But, yeah, man, it's, and he's so, locked in with his facial expression, like he just doesn't show much emotion. But this is also why, I mean, he's not a robot, but I just think he's one of those guys that just doesn't get high and low, which benefits him, I think, at some level.
Yeah, stone face for sure. Okay, the opposite of that at halftime, if you stay in your seat, you'll probably have a reaction or two. It's not Red Panda. It's not the lady with the flaming hula hoop on the ball, which I think my wife noticed I was extra interested in. I just had to tell her, honey, whenever it's combustion and hula hoops, I don't care if it's Michael Moore inside the hula hoop, I'm going to be paying close attention. It had nothing to do with the woman in the leotard. This is a little outside the box even further. So maybe you want to get your popcorn, I don't know, in the final media timeout or something like that. You're probably going to want to be in the seat for the halftime break as Joey McGuire is leading the charge to a halftime Red Raider football slam dunk contest. And I don't mean leading the charge as in he's participating, although I wouldn't rule anything out for Coach McGuire. May have him going off the trampoline like the mascot in Utah or whatever. But yeah, they're cooking up something a little different. We've seen this a few times before, but I'm curious to see maybe who's showing out during the halftime break representing the football program.
That lady at halftime the other night, did you see her put that fire out with her mouth?
I sure did. And again, it had nothing to do with, it's just impressed by impressive things, Chris. That's all it is.
I mean, I'm sitting there. I had seen that they were bringing her in or whatever, like on some email, like, hey, here's the game tonight. Here's all the things going on. And I clicked on the halftime deal and I went down this rabbit hole. And like she's been at a bunch of NBA arenas. I watched the Mavericks halftime show. She did one with the Utah Jazz and all these different things. And so the video that Tech had linked out, it didn't show anything with fire, but I'd done this rabbit hole and I'd seen enough videos, and I'm telling Haxton, I'm like, man, I've seen what this lady can do, man. She's got something to do with fire. We probably won't get that tonight. And he starts bumping me like halfway through the deal. He's like, there comes the fire. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And we just started narrating the halftime show instead of going over the stat sheet and talking about what the second half was going to look like. And she's like, and then she like, chewed on the fire and it went out. And I'm like, and then the dude with the fancy hat and the suspender and over, I guess her assistant, I don't know, he's just standing there like just holding the props and stuff. Anyway, wow, halftime show will be much different on Saturday, though. You're right.
Maybe fire. Don't rule out some fire. We're not sure.
Well, God, I hope not. I don't want to. I don't want like the movie Old School with Will Ferrell, like kind of scene where he's in the costume. Yeah, we have to keep our composure. Yes, that's right. We like lock it up, and he's like my skin. I have actually what is fascinating about this event is like I love that Joey embraces it. I think that they are all about it. They are all about like kind of merging these two teams in sports, and I think baseball gets involved at some level sometimes too with different things. But that's what's fun about Texas Tech's campus. I don't think every campuses are like that, but because from a football standpoint, you have a huge junior day with a ton of visitors in town. So the next recruiting cycle really kicks off in earnest with this Saturday home game on January the 13th. And then he's going to, bring his guys in there, and that's going to be the halftime entertainment. And I've told you this before, but that is oddly enough, and people are like, are you serious when you said that? I'm like, yeah, I'm dead serious. That is one of the criteria sometimes when they are recruiting a prospect. If they hoop, can they dunk it? What's it look like? They feel like there's some athleticism with body control and ability to jump, and because they're big hurdles team too, from the way that they grade personnel out, and they really pay attention to hurdles at some level too. They just feel like there's some direct correlations into, and so I've actually heard when some prospects are added, or I remember heard this the first time last year. They're like, I can't wait to watch these guys at the halftime of the dunk contest. and here we are a year later. Because I don't know who all will participate. I'm going to give you my favorite here in a second because I think he is participating. But like if you saw like Micah Hudson and Jacoby Williams and some of the highlights that they were sending out on signing day, it's insane. We're talking through the leg, windmill stuff. These guys are like 6 foot and just jumping through a gym. No trampoline needed in games. All this stuff. So I'm not sure what you'll get, but it's not going to be some average, like, oh man, he can barely jump or no. You're going to get some sauce, and it'll just be a matter of how they grade it and judge it, and you hope nobody gets hurt. That's your goal. Like exactly. So that's why we don't need the fire. My favorite though.
First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events, and with Gametime, you won't, because it's always a breeze. Using the Gametime app, where you're going to find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it begins, which means Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats for any event. The fastest, easiest way to buy tickets, and not just fast, but it's also secure and simple to use when you download the Gametime app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime by downloading the Gametime app, creating an account, and then use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed.
My favorite, though, he's when they have the dunk contests, like in the NBA, they always describe guys, okay, high flyer, power dunker, prop guy. There's always kind of these labels with these dudes. Yeah. We've all seen it. Yeah. Marcus Ramon Edwards is kind of a combination of what I would determine is like a power dunker / high flyer. I mean, he's
a hometown kid. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Freak athlete. I have seen, footage of him at Trinity where he went and missed a dunk and hung on the rim and the ball like kind of bounced to him. He caught it and still it is kind of this fascinating. You may have seen it. It's out there. It was out there a year or so ago. Yeah. But he that's my pick. That's my my horse. I'm going with that one. I don't know if I'll be right or not, but I like my odds, man.
Man, looking forward to seeing if you're right on that. And the hometown kid's going to have the crowd on his side. So that's always important as well, how you can pump them up. All right, before we get out of here, Chris, let's run through the Big 12 really quickly. We want to see what's got your attention here. A couple of interesting ball games, to say the least. We'll kick it off earlier in the day, 1 o'clock tip from Lawrence, Kansas, the battle of, who wants to win one? It's Oklahoma. It's Kansas. A disappointing week for both. The Sooners better have about a 15-point lead if they hope to win by the time you get to the final 5 minutes, because the Zebras are going to be cooking for the Jayhawks to get them back on track. BYU goes to Central Florida. You got Houston on the road in Fort Worth to take on Texas Christian. A couple of varying paths to that one there. Texas on the road from Morgantown to take on West Virginia. Oklahoma State Cowboys are in Ames, hoping to avoid more Hilton magic. And the Bearcats of Cincinnati are in Waco to hook up with the Bears. What's standing out to you?
Well, the games in Lawrence and Fort Worth are the two best ones, other than I think you're the one that you're participating in my opinion. Because like Oklahoma and Kansas, this is the part about the Big 12. It's always about. It can be about where you play teams and all that, but a lot of times it's when you play them. And so like Oklahoma and Kansas, for example, top 10 ranking last week, it's going to change because they've both lost. But that's the fascinating thing about this game is they both are coming off of a loss. Not everybody gets to rebound and and bounce back and and all that stuff. So that result is going to be fascinating to me to see kind of, and you would obviously expect Kansas to bounce back and maybe get a call late at home. I don't know. But Oklahoma is good now. Oklahoma is good. And and then I go to, TCU, here TCU is, they just had a big win against Oklahoma at home. They're very good. They're athletic. They're deep. And then Houston comes in off of a loss. And so, maybe if you're TCU, it's like, okay, yeah, we get these boys at home, but maybe not the best time to be playing them right now, because I'm sure Kelvin Sampson has been a pleasure to be around all week after they got thumped in Ames, Iowa. But those are two NCAA tournament level type games right there to me. I mean, those are these are kind of these are big time matchups with what I think these teams will ultimately be. And then you look at like Central Florida. Can they handle success? I mean, BYU, here they are 0-2. Central Florida is, being told how great they are. It's the biggest win in program history. They get another home game. It'll be crazy and all that. And BYU can go in and thump them, and it shouldn't shock anybody.
Well, that's another team you think maybe their coach has been getting their attention. The Cougars coming in feeling really good, and they're sitting there at 0-2 right now.
Yep, and Mark Pope, did you see the clip the other day where in Waco where he smashed the scores table and he doused his radio guys with the. I mean, it was like it was a different. It was a little bit different than like splash shitty or all the fun terms that we use with basketball. No, yeah, he turned around and pounded the right there, and then it was like the radio guys were like, ugh. It was in slow motion. I was like, oh, man. I've seen Haxton get doused with Dr. Pepper in Anaheim, California one time. That's why I always laminate my spotting boards and I always have a lid on any drink that I'm operating with because of the Dr. Pepper incident in Anaheim. You live and learn, right? Texas will beat West Virginia. I think with Oklahoma State and Iowa State, I mean, Oklahoma State, I bet it's much like the other night. I think they'll play really well for a while, but I bet Iowa State's just too much at home. And I think Baylor will beat Cincinnati. That's kind of how I would see. But like TCU Houston, I bet Houston bounces back, and I bet Kansas bounces back as well. But another loaded day in the league. And your game, if people are doing locked on, insert other Big 12 city here, and they're looking at the slate like we did, I guarantee you they're talking about being fascinated to see who wins between the Red Raiders and Kansas State, because it's kind of a you end up at 3-0 and after 3 games, I mean, you start to make some news for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think about somebody between Oklahoma, Kansas, going to be starting out 1-2 in the league. Houston, Texas Christian, somebody's going to be 1-2 in the league. BYU coming in, I think, is number 12 whenever they open up Big 12 play. They could be 0-3 to start out league play. So there'd be some interesting records, maybe not some you would anticipate to the first 3 games for some of those teams. Get a win on Saturday, maybe flirting with the top 25 next week, or given how much they respect Texas Tech, you get a win on Saturday. I don't know. The precedent would say then I guess K-State's going to be a top 25 team possibly next week if you follow the Longhorn precedent, which I'm sure is applied equally to all programs across the country. Chris, it's been a great week with you, man. Appreciate all the insight. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the call, and we'll be back on the other side to digest it all. Word to the unintentional rhyme master, man. Thanks for the time. Enjoyed it as always.
See you at the arena on Saturday out there, folks. You too, Cowan. Again, if you want to sound smart, Marcus Ramon Edwards.
All right.
That's your winner. And there's rumors about weather changing out there, so stay warm, people. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, stay warm.
Taking bets on the concourse like a Filipino cockfight. MRE. Something like that. All right. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.